images across the country of emaciated children, of children who are dying in hospitals, has to be of grave concern to the church. Pastor Dix.
100%. As a religious and faith leader in our community, it pains me greatly to see what's going on in Gaza, to deal with those images coming across that you cannot unsee when it comes to the suffering, the immense amount of suffering that's happening in in that area of the world. And again, from a theological perspective, Israel is a very much a part of the Christian dynamic in the sense that, as the Old Testament unfurls, you see this nation of God's chosen that might be considered a precursor to the church. You have that happening, and so it's really difficult to watch Israel behave in this way. I think that you squarely hit it on the head, that Israel does have a right to defend itself, but the bigger picture here is: do you have a right to distance yourself from the moral obligation to make sure that people who are innocent, and this is only going back to Geneva Conventions and things like that, that people who are innocent, who are not combatants, have to suffer things like starvation? I think that's really, really the big question here, and my answer would be no.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest in this hour, On the Grind with Barbara Arnwine, will be in our second hour. When we come forward, we will hear more from Pastor Dix. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Barr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is the pastor of Pilgrim Church, Reverend Raymond Dix. Reverend, I want to make the distinction between those that we have been negotiating with for a two-state solution, the Palestinian Authority, which is headed by Mahmoud Abbas, also known as Abu Mazen. He was elected president of the Palestinian Authority in 2005 following the death of Yasser Arafat, securing over 60% of the vote in the Gaza and at that time in the West Bank. Hamas, as a terror group, has taken over the Gaza Strip. Hamas, funded by Iran, is largely responsible for terror in Gaza and terror against Israel. I mean terror against their own people. But both sides, in their war, the Israelis and the stubborn leadership of this terrorist organization, have left innocent civilians, tens of thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them, in the Strip without basic human rights protections, and it has led to an exacerbated problem, including but not limited to what they initiated themselves on October 7th. I'm not going to let that go because we are here for a reason. But with that said, the massive amount of military force, both the United States and Israel, in the Gaza, not with the Palestinian Authority, not in the West Bank, but in the Gaza Strip, has led to a humanitarian crisis on the scale that we have never seen before. When I was in Congress for 17 years, we negotiated the United States under a number of presidents. President Clinton, when I was first elected, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, negotiated with the Palestinian Authority, and there is relative calm in the West Bank, save for expansive settlements that continue to be built in the West Bank. But the idea that Hamas, an illegitimate government and a terrorist organization, is willing to starve the Palestinian people truly says a lot. But both sides are culpable in that the Israelis could allow aid trucks and food trucks to avert the starvation, even as they seek the return of Israeli hostages, some of whom are living and some of whom are deceased because of the tragedy of the unfolding conflict and because of the events of October 7th. I wanted to ask your thoughts on this question of the moral dilemma that both sides, both the Americans, both the Israelis, and the illegitimate organization Hamas are engaged in, and the role that they're playing in the starvation.
Well, my thoughts are this, Brother Jackson, that we have to look at this from the standpoint of you have varied geopolitical views that are at work here. Israel has a certain view because they are in the thick of it. They are right next door to this particular terror activity, and they were attacked. And I'm sure you recall, like many Americans, that in on September 11, 2001, there's probably sadly, the way that countries often get galvanized in terms of unified is when you circle the wagons when you've been attacked. And so you have political realities in Israel. You have political realities in the United States as well, as a longtime ally to the Israelis. But again, we are in some ways distanced from that problem by an ocean and and a continent and all those things. Then you have the political realities that affect Hamas as an organization, that they are committed solely to the destruction of Israel, which means that from their particular view, it seems that nothing is off the table. So when you talk about fighting and engaging in and managing warfare, the moral compass, and I said all that to say the moral compass is quite different and maybe even affected by these political dynamics that are existing within each group. As an American, as a Christian, I never want to see children starve. But it appears, as you've rightly stated, that Hamas, an illegitimate government in that area in the Gaza Strip, doesn't mind seeing the Palestinian people suffer. Then you have Israel that should, in my opinion, do the right thing. And I think the president just said something about this today. I was reading Chicago Tribune, I believe it was, uh, about encouraging Benjamin Netanyahu to open the gates and let the food trucks in so that the food could be there. So you have all of these dynamics that actually complicate this on what from a basic moral perspective should be pretty easy, but people look at morality quite differently. And I think we see that not only in this circumstance but even in our own country when it comes to what is right and what is wrong in the idea of race and ethnicity, for example. So people look at morality quite differently depending on their perspective.
I'd like I'm just going to be candid because I've been involved in these negotiations for 40 years in one way or another through my parents, through former Ambassador Andrew Young. I've observed him when he was president of the Security Council in the Jimmy Carter administration, and I'm well aware of how and why Jimmy Carter dismissed, fired Andy Young, the assistant to Martin Luther King Jr., whose career in Congress, both in the Congress and as mayor of the city of Atlanta, helped pave the way for a number of very important peace agreements between the United States, Israel, and the Palestinians. I would love to hear the Israeli government announce publicly that they are not at war with the Palestinian people. They are at war with Hamas, and that they will do everything within their power to make sure that the Palestinian people are fed, that they will receive all of the medicines, all of the vaccines, and all of the basic standards of human living that are necessary to survive under these extraordinary circumstances. What I don't want Israel to do is to be seen as complicit in starvation, in part because Judaism itself is the foundation of my own Christian values.
That's right.
Judeo-Christian ethic matters to me at the core of my being. And so I need Israel. When I read the Bible, I need Israel to be on the side of the hungry. I need them to be on the side of the poor. I need them to be on the side of the least of these. I need them to see the stranger on the Jericho road and recognize, just as the priest and the Levi did not recognize, but the Samaritan did recognize, that there are going to be some strangers on the Jericho road. And while we preach this sermon every Sunday in our churches, more often than probably any other sermon in the Bible, the challenges that the Samaritan confronted under that moral dilemma of the possibility, like the priest and the Levite, to walk by a suffering person on the road, I need the Israelis to be able to say to themselves and to the world that starvation is unacceptable and that not feeding people, hunger is not a weapon of war, and do everything within their good graces to do that. I'm sure that they can recapture some of the moral authority that I believe has been lost in this conflict and lost really in any war between two parties. Your thoughts, Reverend Dix?
Yeah, I think you're right on that, and I would say that it takes people like yourself who have observed what's been going on in that region of the world for many decades now to be able to say things like there is this distinction that we must draw between the Palestinian people and Hamas.
Absolutely.
And I think that also though that there are bad actors like Iran that may be trying to draw the United States into some part of armed conflict in that area, if it's nothing more than to send our men and women, our soldiers, for peacekeeping or for humanitarian aid. And the reason is because it makes big headlines for the regime in Iran if you kill an American soldier or you kill Americans. When they shout death to Israel, they invariably shout death to America at the same time. And so when you see that happening, Brother Jackson, I think you've got some maybe bad actors, as I said, behind the scenes that are trying to invite America into this conflict for their own nefarious reasons. But your distinction is very, very critical and very important. I would join you in saying that I would love to hear Israel say that this war is not with the Palestinian people, but it is with Hamas.
I appreciate that, Reverend Dix. Let me pivot for a moment about another moral dilemma. I see cowardice in the Congress of the United States, and I see cowardice certainly in the behavior of the President of the United States and the Department of Justice in this whole Ghislaine Maxwell meetings with the second in charge of the Department of Justice on this question of sex trafficking. And I think all of the American people see the President of the United States as trying to wiggle his way out of these documents. I heard the most absurd thing the other day. The President said that Barack Obama and Joe Biden are responsible for placing his name in evidence in grand jury testimony that was delivered by defendants and those who were trying not to be defendants about the involvement of certain people's names on certain lists related to Jeffrey Epstein. And now I see Congress leaving town. They don't want to vote. No one wants to deal with it in town hall meetings. But it seems to me, Pastor Dix, that MAGA is not going to let it go.
No, it doesn't seem that that's going to be the case. And I think that, again, cowardice is actually a very good word that I would use to describe what is going on. But I think, as you well know, as having served in that august body of elected officials called the Congress of the United States,
It was August. It was August when I was there.
yeah. But that particular body of elected officials has shown cowardice in the past as well, and so I'm not, really surprised when you see cowardice showing up again. Unfortunately, there were days even when Congress was unfavorable in the civil rights movement. At least some of those staunch racists like the Jesse Helms and people like that, you knew where they stood. They took a stand. If they said I hate black people or whatever the case may be, they were very open about it. Nowadays, it seems like these political winds that are driving our elected officials are a detriment to the stability of democracy and a detriment to the stability of our country.
I think that's right. We have about just about 4 minutes before we come forward. I do want to throw this out there. You can tell from the behavior of the president when he throws Barack Obama under the bus or he wants to throw Bill Clinton under the bus. He is reaching and stretching for statements, we believe, from Ms. Maxwell that implicates Democrats in this. And she does have this incentive that if, in fact, the presidential pardon power is on the table, that she could be in some kind of double jeopardy in that she has obviously seen and been close enough to Jeffrey Epstein to know exactly who the characters are that may have taken advantage of these young children and these young people.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. I think, when you look at this from a expanded perspective, money, sex, and power has always been the things that have been the ruination of many leaders, and we have many biblical examples of that as you look at the kings of Israel and Judah, and even as you go through the Roman Empire and historically, and I think this particular scandal includes all of those elements, just brought into focus with 21st century technology, 21st century moral principles or lack thereof, and now people are scrambling. They're looking, they're wondering what's next. And so I think that you're 100% right that you're going to see a lot of things, I think, happen with this, where both sides will be looking and pointing the fingers at each other.
I'm also surprised, Reverend Dix, that the Democratic Party, given its recent polling around 26%, doesn't appear to be the beneficiary of leadership characteristics during this period. And I would be remiss if I did not say that, because it's not just what Donald Trump is saying or doing, or what MAGA is saying or doing. There are some uncertain sounds that are coming from the Democratic Party.
100%. And the issue here is who is going to step up, not so much what, but who is going to step up and show real fortitude in leadership. I long for the day where we had at least people like Tip O'Neill, who didn't mind marching down to the White House and sitting down with Ronald Reagan over a brandy and saying, "Hey, let's go at it." Let's have some discussions here about what's good for America. Where's that kind of leadership and fortitude in the Democratic Party? And frankly, the Republican Party is simply a tool of Donald Trump, and not even really true to their own founding principles and things like that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Pastor Dix.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Authorities are investigating why Shane Tamura opened fire in a Manhattan office building, killing 4 before taking his own life.
Hats off to the men and women of the New York City Police Department and our partners for immediately going in the building, going floor by floor, doing a search, looking for any incendiary devices.
That's Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Police say the former high school football star left a note blaming CTE and asked for his brain to be studied. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are asking a judge to release him on $50 million bail ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. He was convicted of prostitution-related charges, but acquitted of sex trafficking. And former President Obama says Gazans are dying of starvation and urged aid access even without a ceasefire. President Trump claims Hamas is stealing supplies and says the U.S. will set up food centers in Gaza. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Interesting night tonight for the LA Sparks. They're at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Sparks, now 11-14, are trying to win 6 in a row for the first time since 2023. The Sparks' 5-game winning streak is the longest active streak in the WNBA. 7 p.m. tip-off at Crypto.com Arena. If you can't make it to the game, NBA TV has live coverage. Troubling times for the NFL's headquarters in New York City. Investigators believe the gunman who killed 4 people Monday in a Manhattan office building, including a New York City policeman, may have been trying to get to NFL personnel in the building. Police found a note on the shooter, who killed himself after the attack, blaming the NFL for his brain trauma. The shooter, identified as Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, was not a former NFL player. One of the shooting victims is an NFL employee, but doctors said the person is expected to recover. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey man, hey, what's up? What's that station you listening to? Oh man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio, KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Progressive. KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary. And this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it. Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Keep it like me. Oh, KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive. KBLA.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to Jesse Jackson Jr. show on KBLA Talk. Our guest in this hour is Pastor Raymond C. Dix. Pastor Dix comes from Pilgrim Baptist Church with over 30 years of pastoral experience, much of it in urban areas, inner city areas. Ministry, his experience is extraordinary because he's hands-on in the community. He's never shied away from the tough issues, believing fervently that God's word answers prayers and all things. Let's pivot if we can for a moment, because during the break I was reflecting upon the days. Of course, I was too young at the time when Tip O'Neill would have brandy with Ronald Reagan. I was not too young when I was introduced to one of my bad habits, which is smoking cigars with the late Congressman Henry Hyde, who was one of my good friends. And we were on the other side of the aisle. In fact, other than my father, Henry Hyde took me around the world, me and Congressman Mel Watt, on what they call congressional junkets, out of Andrews Air Force Base, on a plane that was essentially dedicated to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Henry Hyde, because he had that kind of influence in the Congress of the United States. And I'm thinking that during those eras of real presidential leadership, you would have had the President of the United States, Mahmoud Abbas, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the King of Jordan. They would all be coming through the White House right now, trying to figure out what they can do to reestablish some sense of normalcy, some sense of justice and fairness in this part of the world that appears to be essentially falling apart. Yes, multiple diplomatic trips between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel. This kind of global diplomacy would be taking place in light of what's taking place there. And in this moment, talking with you, Pastor Dix, I actually miss the old days, which when I was growing up, You know, we thought Ronald Reagan was the worst thing that ever happened to the history
Right.
of the United States. And it
Right.
turns out Ronald Reagan, by comparison, was a moderate
Right.
compared to what we're looking at today. So I want to thank you for that moment of reflection. But let me bring it on home a little bit more. Um, all of this is going to boil down to how the American people feel about many of these kind of global issues, but in one way or another, it also boils down to the domestic economic issues that matter for one person who walks into a voting booth with one vote, who not only sees Gaza, sees Israel, sees Syria, sees sub Saharan Africa, but they also see the destruction of the education department. They see the dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development. This one person, this one barber in a barber shop with one vote is being asked to look at the cost of eggs, the cost of bacon, see the whole world, and when they cast their one vote, they mean to impact all of the above. It really isn't just an issue, it's all of the above because we're all bringing to the voting booth in the upcoming midterm elections everything that we feel about what's going on and how it impacts our central nervous system. And I want to hone in on a specific category: Black men, young Black men. They're sitting out the election processes. Why is that from your perspective, Pastor Dix?
Well, I'm so thankful, first of all, that you brought that up. I am going to be this Saturday sitting on a community-wide panel discussion on that very topic as it relates to some of the things that are affecting young Black men in our community. And I'm sure voting is going to be a part of that process. But as a very world famous fraternity has as a motto, of voteless people is a hopeless people. And certainly as a member of that fraternity, I think about that quite often. So when you talk about why they're not participating in the electoral process, it has a lot to do with whether they have any hope in this process doing anything to benefit them. It's very difficult, as you well know, to connect a hungry person, an impoverished person, to poverty that's all the way around the world.
Mm.
It is much easier to connect them to what is happening in their neighborhood. And I think that going back from the saying that all politics are local, the way to get our young Black men engaged is to begin to see how do local officials affect what is going on in your community. Yes, presidential elections, we can get excited about them, but as Mel Gibson once said in that movie The Patriot, why should I worry about one tyrant 3,000 miles away when I have 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? And I think that that's a very important perspective when it comes to these young Black men. How do we engage them? We get them involved in the local issues. Most everybody wants clean water. Most everybody wants to be able to say, I'd like my streets to be safe. I'd like the police to have standards that they're being held to, so that when I leave my home, simply because I may not be dressed a certain way, I will not be treated as or looked upon as a suspect in a criminal activity. So I think those are the things to say, that we have to say that to these young Black men. Get involved in your local community. Start making your life better by becoming a part of the solution and not being considered part of the problem, even though you're really not to the level that is being perpetrated by the media.
Now, I want to share with you something because Pastor Dix and I did not get the opportunity to chat before the show. So we are just being real and keeping it real. So I'm going to take a shot at something, Pastor Dix, that I've been reflecting upon a lot lately because you've touched upon it. And it is this: I think Black men, but Black people in particular, on the day that they're born into the world, certainly as Americans, their mothers, their fathers, if we're blessed to have both, give us our names. But there is not a name that my parents gave me that I completely accept, but whether they recognize it or not, and this for me goes to the heart of why our brothers are not voting. When young brothers are born into the world, their middle name is probable cause. Probable cause. Now, let me flush that out for you for a moment. If you're walking down the street with a hoodie on and you have a bag of Skittles, probable cause. If you're a student at Harvard University, there's probable cause to believe you don't belong there and you're black male. If you are walking through Walmart, or of course we're boycotting Target right now, so let's just take them off. If you're walking through a mall, probable cause. If you're wearing jeans down by your knees, probable cause. If you're driving with loud music, a police officer can pull you over for what? Probable cause. If you look like you're somewhere or walking down the street in some neighborhood that you don't belong in someone else's estimation, probable cause. From the moment as a black person you enter this earth, particularly as a black American male, you are born into probable cause, and you spend your entire life fighting probable cause. Your dad tries to protect you. Your mother tells you how to behave at school. They tell us how to back away and to avoid conflicts. They share with us what some of the consequences of being in larger groups of black men or riding around in a car. Probable cause. When we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. show, I want to explore this idea that at birth, young black men are tired, exhausted of being seen as probable cause for anything that they do. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. My very special guest is Pastor Raymond Dix. When we come forward, we're going to talk about the black male dilemma.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, man. Hey, what's up, bro? What's the station you listening to? Oh, man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio. KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary. And this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it. Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. My very special guest is Pastor Raymond Dix. Pastor Dix is a fantastic pastor, one heck of a preacher, but he's also keeping it real because he keeps his ministry to the ground where people can get it, and he keeps it real. Pastor Dix, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Pastor Dix, I want to talk about, and I'm going to try and ask you to hang around with me after the hour for another 15 minutes because this one right here ain't going nowhere. Probable cause. I was with my girlfriend just yesterday, and we went out. She was by a swimming pool. She left her purse. My truck's on the other side of where we're hanging out, and I need my car keys. So I saw her purse, and I know that she was sitting next to two elderly white folks at this location, and so I go over, unzip the little side pocket, and I reach in and grab my keys. And the older white woman and the older white man said, "Oh, excuse me, excuse us. That's her purse. Excuse us." And I said, "Yeah, but these are my keys." And then I said to myself, probable cause. Now, they didn't see 9-term congressman.
No.
They didn't see magna cum laude, North Carolina A&T State University. They didn't see Chicago Theological Seminary. They didn't see the University of Illinois College of Law. They didn't see 13 honorary doctorates. They didn't see author of multiple books. In that moment, they saw probable cause. Now, it's easy for me to say they saw a black male, right? That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all confront. But what I'm saying here is that every action we take as black men, particularly young black men, the society sees us as probable cause. Therefore, we have to prove to everyone that we are innocent while the society assumes that we're guilty. Now, I just want to add this personal story very quickly. I lived in my campaign funds. I cannot afford to be in Congress. Most people on earth know that. People who know me well know that. 2 cities, 2 young children, back and forth, over 17 years. That was my offense. But that's not what started my offense. That's what they found. My offense started with probable cause. They said I did something I did not do in 2008. And that opened a window into an investigation of everything they've ever thought that I've ever done. I was under investigation for 4 years before they came back and said, we found something wrong. You're living in your campaign. I said, I am doing that now. I am not a millionaire. I came here right out of the seminary and law school. I'm broke as hell.
Right. With debt, right?
Right. But no. You can't live in your campaign, even though lots of members of Congress live in their campaign. But what I had in my life that they did not have in their life was probable cause. Talk to me, Pastor Dix. You're not a minister until you tell somebody you're a minister. You're not a lawyer until you tell somebody you're a lawyer. You're not a medical doctor until you tell somebody you are a medical doctor. You start your life in every facet of your life as a Black man in probable cause.
I mean, you're 100% right on that, and I think that that being the reality of the Black male experience in America, it must be incumbent upon us, particularly I call upon the church, to be able to say, what are the strategies to help people strive for success and succeed and thrive in spite of this probable cause, as you've so aptly named it, being attached to young Black men as they come into the world. And I think the number one thing that helps us deal with that is refuse to allow someone else to set your worth and value. For example, as long as you let people other than you, particularly those who are unlike you culturally and ethically, to set your value, you will always be subject to their perceptions of you. And my dad, I'm a junior just like you are, and so my dad and I have had some great conversations about this very subject. And I told him, as I got to a point in my life where I decided that no Black man in America was going to be freer than me, because I read in the Bible where whom the Son sets free is free indeed. That can't just mean inside the four walls of the church. It has to mean as I conduct my everyday life, I conduct it free of the perceptions, the assigned value that others may try to put on my life. And you know what that does? That raises my self-esteem. And when my self-esteem is raised, no one else can place upon me their values. And so regardless of what you think of me, I know who sets my value, and that would be the Almighty God, in whose image I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And I think that message has to get to our young men. You are valuable in spite of probable cause, in spite of what people are saying, in spite of how they've assigned different designations to you because of where you live, where you come from, what clothes you wear, what music you listen to. You are free of their designations of you. Therefore, now you can go out and be whoever God has designed for you to be.
I love that message, but I do want to hang around the pervasiveness of the problem. You're from East Chicago, smack dab in the middle of Gary and Chicago, probable cause, like Compton and Gardena, probable cause, the Bronx, Bedford-Stuyvesant, probable cause, because people look like you and where you grow up, you are already in probable cause as soon as you say where you're from. There's an assumption that nothing good can come out of Nazareth.
Yes.
It's this assumption that, so Jesus is born into probable cause. Let's just start with that.
Yeah. Let's start there. Right.
He's born with probable cause, death warrant. Somebody has been born who's going to run the government one day. Somebody has been born who's going to be in Congress one day. Somebody has been born over here who could be president of the United States one day. So you start with, let me prove to you that I'm not one of us. You spend your whole life trying to become credentialed, trying to become something. And then some of us develop a little attitude. Don't you know that I'm the professor of the whatever and I'm the head? No, listen here, Negro, you're in probable cause and you cannot escape it if that white woman right there says that you touched her inappropriately. Or If you're accused of something, you start out as guilty and you spend all of your money trying to prove your innocence. I'm not going to let that go because I think that's where our brothers are at 16, 17, and 18 because they cannot quite figure out why the entire society sees them with suspicion.
Well, it was tough. It was tough for me to do that at that age. I mean, there's no doubt about growing up in East Chicago, Indiana, which actually was more of a melting pot than say Gary or South Side of Chicago. But still, growing up in that area, I couldn't figure that out as a young person. When I really got it, I got it when I understood the value that God had on my life, and I think the message that the church has lost. Brother Jackson, is that we have not taken the initiative in helping these young people know. They come through our church, they question why we sing those old hymns and that old music and all those kind of things, and we kind of shoo them away and not actually say this generation has legitimate questions that deserve accountable answers, and we need to be able to give that to them, because why else would they have to have faith in a God if God could not provide for you the kind of liberty that I'm talking about?
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Pastor Raymond Dix on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show live on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we will be on the grind with Barbara Arnwine, and I've asked Pastor Dix to hang around with me for at least one more segment so we can mix it up when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Authorities are investigating why Shane Tamura opened fire in a Manhattan office building, killing 4 before taking his own life.
Hats off to the men and women of the New York City Police Department and our partners for immediately going in the building, going floor by floor, doing a search, looking for any incendiary devices.
That's Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Police say the former high school football star left a note blaming CTE and asked for his brain to be studied. Attorneys for Sean Diddy Combs are asking a judge to release him on $50 million bail ahead of his October 3rd sentencing. He was convicted of prostitution-related charges, but acquitted of sex trafficking. And former President Obama says Gazans are dying of starvation and urged aid access even without a ceasefire. President Trump claims Hamas is stealing supplies and says the U.S. will set up food centers in Gaza. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Interesting night tonight for the LA Sparks. They're at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Sparks, now 11-14, are trying to win 6 in a row for the first time since 2023. The Sparks' 5-game winning streak is the longest active streak in the WNBA. 7 p.m. tip-off at Crypto.com Arena. If you can't make it to the game, NBA TV has live coverage. Troubling times for the NFL's headquarters in New York City. Investigators believe the gunman who killed 4 people Monday in a Manhattan office building, including a New York City policeman, may have been trying to get to NFL personnel in the building. Police found a note on the shooter, who killed himself after the attack, blaming the NFL for his brain trauma. The shooter, identified as Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, was not a former NFL player. One of the shooting victims is an NFL employee, but doctors said the person is expected to recover. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Why thank you? Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad You're on this journey with us.
You never turn away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Jesse Jackson Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in our second hour. None other than Barbara Arnwine, president and founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. She is internationally renowned for contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the 2006 reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. Barbara is going to be joining us in just a moment. I understand that Barbara is here. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Barbara, I want to introduce you to Pastor Raymond Dix, who was with me in the previous hour. And I've begun this this reflection on the absence of the black male vote, where black men are, why they're not voting, and what I believe is something that all of us have missed. And it's going to take the size of a political party to bring this attention to the American people in a way that they can hear it. You watch it all the time on social media, especially Facebook. A car gets pulled over. The driver turns and says, "What is your basis for pulling me over? What is the basis of the stop?" And then the police officer says, "Speeding," or "I just want to see your ID," or something. And then the young man says, "Well, what is your articulable reason of suspicion?" And then the process begins to escalate from there. I have argued in the previous hour with Pastor Dix that black men are born into this world with the middle name probable cause. When you walk into a restaurant, the assumption is that you're not going to pay.
Yes.
You walk down the street, the assumption is that you mean to do somebody some harm. When you're standing in a group of other black men, it's a gang. When you are admitted to Harvard University or to any PWI institution, you are there because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or maybe even affirmative action. If you're tall, you must be a basketball player. If you're wide, you must be a football player. In other words, there is prejudgment and there is post-judgment from the day you are born as an African-American male. I believe you are born into probable cause until you convince someone that you're not in probable cause. I don't care if you have a PhD, a law degree, a medical degree, or just a high school diploma or dropped out of school. You will live the rest of your life from the moment you are born to the moment you leave this earth in probable cause. Barbara, Pastor Dix and I have been talking about that, but I know no one in the country who has been fighting issues of racial discrimination that include the legal concept of probable cause that has more often than not defined the very existence of young black men.
Well, that's so much. And hi, Pastor. Glad to be on with you.
Yes, pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, sounds like a fascinating discussion in the first hour. So let me add a couple things. One, there's a brand new book that came out last year by Professor Donald Jones. It is called The Presumption. The Presumption. And it's so powerful. And I went down, he's a University of Miami law professor, and I went down for the launch of the book, and we had a whole panel on it, talking about the presumption that follows young black men primarily from cradle to grave. And the presumption is a brilliant book. I really, 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 really recommend it. In fact, I had wanted to really bring Donald to Capitol Hill to do a briefing for the Congressional Black Caucus on it. Still may, because it is just so telling when he talks about all the reinforcing structures that make the presumption so powerful in our lives. Now, that's one thing I wanted to point out. The other problem is what's called civil death. Civil death. When you are convicted, you are subject in some states to what's called civil death. Or they even written it into statutes like in Mississippi that say that you have lost, quote, your civil rights. And basically, these are the states that absolutely deny people the right to vote. And by my estimate, by formal estimates, there's over 5.6 million people who are affected by those laws. A good portion of them, percentage of them, are African American. The other reality that most people don't know about is what I call the 18 million people. As we are sitting here right now, there are 18 million formerly incarcerated people who are eligible to vote but don't vote because they're so fearful that they will violate the law because they don't know what the law is in their state. They don't trust anybody, and they shouldn't trust police officers and others because people tell them the wrong stuff all the time. And as a consequence that they don't know, they don't register, they don't vote. I'm serious. 18 million. 18 million. Think about the power of that number. These people are fully eligible to vote right this minute. But they don't.
My number says that there's about 70 million men and women, red, yellow, brown, black, and white, who paid their debt to society in full.
That's correct.
Many of them have disengaged from the system. And of course, the 18 million is a subset of that. Many of them cannot re-engage the system for education purposes and all kinds of reasons that they don't understand until such time as the governor's issue and the president of the United States issues them an emancipation in the form of the pardon to clear up their records. And we can go through all the second chances stuff another day, but the stroke of a single pen in many cases. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Pastor Dix, I want you to hang around with me and Barbara for a minute. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, we have more to talk about this presumption and probable cause.
Yes.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aid.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to Tenacious Tuesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You're on the grind with attorney Barbara Arnwine, and our very special guest is Pastor Raymond Dix. Pastor Dix is the pastor of the Pilgrim Church, and Pastor Dix, you've heard from one of our nation's leading legal authorities on civil rights and transformative justice, Dr. Barbara Arnwine. Pastor Dix, your thoughts on the presumption and probable cause. I think I may have lost Pastor Dix.
Oh, I'm okay. There we go.
There he is.
There you are,
Yeah.
Pastor Dix.
All
Welcome
right.
to Jesse
Yeah.
Jackson Show.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Dr. Arnwine, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I would say this, as a person of faith, as a man of the cloth, my perspective, as I've said many times before, even across the pulpit, African American people, Black people in particular, us, we have been some of the most faithful followers of Jesus Christ as this country has ever seen. You know, there's no shadow of a doubt. From the small wood bench church in the fields of Mississippi and Alabama, where many of my congregants have migrated north from, to the mega churches and the Concords and places like that in Abyssinians in New York City. So we have had this relationship with God. There comes a point, though, when your faith collides with your reality, and that collision ought to make a significant change in how you think of yourself. And I think that's the main thing. One of the things that, again, makes us so vulnerable to these things, in my opinion, is that we've been inundated with this white is right perspective most of our lives. I mean, go all the way back to the experiments of the dolls in the 1950s during the school. Yeah, absolutely.
Anna Clark.
Absolutely. That's the case. And you go back to that and you see that we've been chosen. Well, I wanted to wear kids sneakers as a kid in the 70s because Superman wore them. Okay. PF Flyers. I can go way back, man. I mean, the cereal I ate, always had these white images. Listen, watch this now. The Sunday school books and the felt figurines that were put on the felt board were white. And so even my faith was beginning to be shaped by this image of whiteness. And now what has to happen, though, when you really understand who you are in God, you understand that that's not true, that white is not right, that your faith in God collides against your reality, and it ought to make a significant change in your life and how you think. And your thinking is no longer shaped by what the world's perspective is of you, but what is God's perspective. I don't live for the approval of people. I live for the approval of the Almighty God. And when we as Black people begin to really embrace this idea of living for the approval of not living for the approval of white folks. I wrote an article when President Obama was running for president, and it was in the Gary Post-Tribune newspaper, that we need to stop living for the approval of white people. We don't need them to approve of our leaders. We don't need them to approve of the people who speak into our lives. We don't need them to approve of us. It's one thing to be begging for a seat at that table, but it's another thing to be begging for a seat when I'm standing on wood, nails, and hammers and can make my own table.
I just want to add this as I ask Barbara Arnwine this question, partly from a theological perspective. Barbara, when we began our program, we had Dr. Aubrey Hendrick, Dr. Walter Fluker, eminent professors, Dr. Bill Howard. We've had Robert Franklin from Emory University. And I asked them all the question, why has the white community never produced a Martin Luther King Jr.? It is my intention to have a week again with those same men back, now that we're almost a year into our program, to make sure that the data points are established with how we began theologically and where we're going theopolitically in this particular context. But I want to say this. Not only have they not produced a Martin Luther King Jr., but none of them were born under the presumption.
No.
None of them were born under probable cause. And therefore, Dr. King, being born like Jesus of Nazareth, a wanted man, I may not get there with you, but I've seen the promised land, is a retort from a person who was born under a presumption and with probable cause. Barbara Arnold.
Yes, it is a fascinating question. One of the dilemmas is that our country can produce thousands of Donald Trumps, thousands of people who are obsessed with themselves, their self-aggrandizement. You can utilize hate to divide and attract, who can talk about his beautiful white skin and all the rest of it during rally after rally. But but you do not see people who just say, I'm gonna be like Bishop, I'm gonna take onto myself this cup, and I'm going to sacrifice everything I have to make sure that my people are okay. It's fascinating because this question is not just a U.S. question. It's a question that's been asked globally. Because I worked for, as you know, decades in South Africa. Well, with the South African people, and I know about their multi-decade, quest for a figure that would turn out to be a Mandela and a Desmond Tutu. I mean, they were so blessed. They had, several, wonderful people who came out of the same era and were able to forge what has become the new day South Africa. And when we look at what's wrong with the U.S., is that you don't have anybody of that who's white who has that moral authority that has come up to say, listen, I'm all about righting the wrong since the redemption period when we were all taught as white people that that's our identity, that's the best thing that's ever going to happen to us is that we're white and that everybody else is inferior, and that we are entitled to everything, political domination, economic domination, etc. Until you get somebody who says, I'm here to stop that cycle. It's like any other generational curse, right? Somebody in a generational curse has to stand up and say, it stops with me. And that's what we're missing. I don't see that in any political voice. I don't see that in any, major pulpit, church voice. But until someone powerful and white who can command people's respect can speak in that way, we got a long ways to go. And I just think that Dr. King is so special. Mandela is so special. When you meet these people, when you're in their presence, I mean, I never met Dr. King myself, but I certainly met Mandela a couple times. And there's just something about their presence that is special. and that you're not going to see it often. And you know it's different the minute you meet him. The minute I met him, I knew he was totally different than anybody I ever met. And the same with Desmond Tutu. He had a whole different kind of vibe. And I just think it's so important for us to understand how rare that is. But that's what America's calling for.
You know,
It's
Barbara,
calling for that moral authority.
I'm going to take a reach here, and
Mhm.
that is this. I believe the church is going to continue to flounder in the United States, particularly the African American church, and more specifically, the liberation theological tradition in our churches, which is largely responsible for our freedom. Until we get past that story of just the frankincense and the myrrh and the innocent little baby, and oh, he's here to save us from our sins, and deeply personalize the fact that, like young African American men and young African American women, he is born into the context of wanted. He is being pursued. He is wanted by the state. Herod is coming for him. They're killing all of the babies because there is a rumor going around town that he has been born. And until we accept that from the date of his birth to his 33rd year, his crucifixion, that this was a wanted man, a wanted baby, and our children in this probable cause, in this presumptive society, that our children are born into that. And that inherently says that we need to raise our children with these assumptions. We need to teach them how to pull up their pants. We need to teach them how to not hang around clubs and all of the things that we've been doing, because you are asking for trouble. I get it. We have a freedom of assembly and a freedom of association. But Pastor Dick, you are asking for trouble as soon as you find yourself in that situation.
Yeah, if I could just, and this is great. This is great. Both of your comments are on point. I would say that one thing that when you talk about the church is when you mention a Bishop Tutu, when you mention a Martin Luther King, when you mention a Nelson Mandela, one thing they all had in common, from my perspective, is that in the mud of oppression, they found the plank of freedom, and they walked as free men. You don't go to jail for 27 years for standing up on an island and beating rocks, making big rocks into little rocks, for doing that for 27 years, unless in your mind you are free. They were never able to break Nelson Mandela. They came very close to breaking Martin because of the pressure when he spoke out against the Vietnam War and things like that. They came very close to that. But I even think there on April 3rd, 1968, he talked about the mountaintop. He talked about going to that mountaintop and looking over and seeing the promised land. That showed me that his spirit was not broken as one day before he was killed. And so I think when we talk about the church has to recognize, Brother Jackson, you're right, that the story of Jesus is not confined to the gold, frankincense, and myrrh and the manger, but it is a story of the cross. It is a story of the gospel. It is a story of the gospel that does not stop working in your life at the moment you get dunked in that water and come up a new Christian or a new believer. The gospel has to continue to work in your life because your mindset has to be new. If any man is in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. So I think it has to start with, and I'll finish by saying this, I think it has to start with how we think and how we portray that gospel. It is more than just that story of the manger. It is a story of liberation and freedom.
Dix, I ain't never heard no preacher on Christmas morning or that Christmas week or leading up to Christmas talking about born on the run. I ain't never heard nobody preach born on the run. Born on the run, just like black men are born on the run. And just like young black women are born on the run. They don't even know they're on the run until they start running. And it's usually right around high school, right around the time they have their first confrontation or are viewed with some kind of reasonable suspicion, Attorney Arnwine, some law enforcement officer. And then, some little cloud of inferiority begins to to well up in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit. That begins the process. I almost want to use this word, acculturation, where you are systematically and slowly being deprived of your authenticity and your genuineness, because the system itself is constantly reminding you
or your personhood, right?
Well, and think about this, because it does all start right here with the mind. And remember, there's a famous letter, from George Washington that talks about how, he did not need to use, a lot of, quote, physical violence against his, quote, slaves, because he controlled their minds. And so one of the things that we have to understand is that there's a beautiful study that was done a couple of years ago. It's not that old. It's like probably 2 years or less, that looked at Black children who, and that's, male, female, men, looked at Black children. And what they found out was that if they had been taught true Black history for over a period of years, true, not, some make-believe nonsense about they came as laborers, they, earned their skills here in the U.S., all that nonsense. But if they were taught true U.S. history, they were more self-confident, more self-aware, and more successful than those who weren't. It's all about where we want to put our values. I mean, I laugh all the time because, the boots on the ground, everybody in the world who's Black been learning to do boots on the ground. We didn't wake up one morning know how to do that dance. We had to study it. We had to teach it. We had to learn it. But we don't put the same energy into our instructional capabilities and responsibilities of teaching our young. And as you know, my obsession is working with the younger generation to make sure that they have that self-confidence, that
Barbara?
ability to understand who they are.
Pastor Dix, thank you for spending this time with us. We're more when we come forward on Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with Barbara Arnwine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. 20 Democrat-led states are suing the Trump administration over a push to collect sensitive data on SNAP recipients.
They are basically trying to weaponize the SNAP program against immigrant communities in violation of the law.
Black New York Attorney General Letitia James says it's an effort to weaponize food stamps against immigrants. States have until July 30th to comply or risk losing federal funds. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour is now the highest grossing country tour ever, pulling in over $407 million from just 32 shows. She wraps the history-making run in Vegas, topping tours by Morgan Wallen and Zach Bryan. And Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford is running for governor in 2026. The Democrat launched his campaign Monday in East Las Vegas. Ford, the first Black person to hold statewide office in Nevada, is aiming to unseat Republican Governor Joe Lombardo. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Interesting night tonight for the LA Sparks. They're at home against the Las Vegas Aces. The Sparks, now 11-14, are trying to win 6 in a row for the first time since 2023. The Sparks' 5-game winning streak is the longest active streak in the WNBA. 7 p.m. tip-off at Crypto.com Arena. If you can't make it to the game, NBA TV has live coverage. Troubling times for the NFL's headquarters in New York City. Investigators believe the gunman who killed 4 people Monday in a Manhattan office building, including a New York City policeman, may have been trying to get to NFL personnel in the building. Police found a note on the shooter, who killed himself after the attack, blaming the NFL for his brain trauma. The shooter, identified as Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, was not a former NFL player. One of the shooting victims is an NFL employee but doctors said the person is expected to recover. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Hey, man. Hey, what's up, What's that station you listening to? Oh, man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio. KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit TremfireRadio.com.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. Welcome to on Tenacious Tuesdays with the most tenacious person that I know. Attorney Barbara Arnwine from the Transformative Justice Coalition is our very special guest in this hour and our regular Tuesday host. Barbara, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's great to be here. You know, I'm in Chicago.
I know you are, and I'm in Virginia.
I know. I just have to laugh.
So you came to Chicago and I left. I'm in Virginia, viewing some historic sites and having a little bit of a respite. Barbara, I want you to use these next two segments of our program to cover some of the issues that you know on the ground are important to our community,
Yes.
to our nation. Barbara?
Yes, I really want everyone's attention focused upon what's happening to the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act will be 60 years old, celebrating its 60th anniversary on August the 6th of next week. I want people to know that that act is imperiled. It's in trouble, folks. There's a major effort underway to kill the act in its application. So, two major things have happened in the last 2 weeks. The Supreme Court, post ending its term, issued last week a stay, which means people call it an injunction, but basically, it's a stop order to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has been promoting a doctrine of no private right of action under the Voting Rights Act. Now, whenever if somebody runs into your car, right, you sue them, using law. And in order to sue somebody, it can't be the person who saw somebody run into your car. It has to be you who suffered the injury. That's the normal law. And that the person who bears the burden of the injury normally is the person who can sue. Well, they decided that if you're called an N-word to your face, if you are confronting a noose at your polling place, if you are redistricted out of power, that if any of these things happen to you, that you have no right to sue.
Wow.
They're saying the only person who can sue is, get ready, everybody, the U.S. Department of Justice.
Oh, Lord.
Yes. And what has the U.S. Department of Justice done just in the last 30 days? They have gotten rid of more than 70% of all their voting rights lawyers. More than 70%. They have effectively shut down their voting rights division, except for any cases they can find that might be white people saying that they were discriminated against. I mean, it is so evil and so racist. So I want people to understand that this Department of Justice under Pam Bondi isn't bringing any cases asserting racial discrimination against people of color. Indeed, the ugliness is that the Eighth Circuit had decided, had applied last year. They had said, well, there may be another route. It may be that you can't sue directly under the Voting Rights Act, but possibly you can use the Civil Rights Statute, Section 1983, to get to your voting rights claims. But a couple of months ago, it decided the Turtle Mountain case and said, nope, that doesn't apply either. Well, elections were scheduled to happen. All kinds of voting things need to happen. So rightfully, the lawyers on behalf of the Native American Indians who have been denied their voting rights, who have been discriminated against. They actually filed a motion for what's called a stay to say, tell the Eighth Circuit that they got to stay their order applying this no private right of action and allow our clients to prevail, to proceed under the district court opinion that the Eighth Circuit has overturned. And to everybody's surprise, Justice Kavanaugh granted the stay, and in a 6-3 basically vote, 3 of the justices opposed, extending the stay that Kavanaugh granted, and the other 6 agreed with him. I mean, other 5 agreed with him. So yeah, it's a 6-3. Who do you think was in the 3? Come on now, you know who there was in the 3.
Had to be Ketanji, had to be Sotomayor, but
No, the 3 who were wrong, who were saying can't stay the bad decision, that you gotta live with the bad decision. There's no private right of action under.
We know who that is.
You know who that is. Come on now, Thomas.
Yeah.
Alito.
Yeah.
And a little surprising, Gorsuch, only because Gorsuch, we know he's got this whole thing about governmental immunity, blah, 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 but only because he normally has been in the past pro-Native American rights, but not always.
Okay,
not always. He's been on some bad cases.
Barbara, I got my dissenters mixed up, but let me ask you a quick question. So Clarence Thomas has declared war on the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and he has made it clear that he wants to open it up to private individuals who are white, essentially, to bring legal action against these congressional districts as well, as if they have been harmed by the representation they get that happens to be African American in the Congress of the United States.
Well, now he's gone a different direction. Now he said nobody can privately sue under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Nobody. That the only person who can bring such a case is the U.S. Department of Justice, which
we already know where they are. We already know where they are. They've got the resources to actually do something detrimental to minority representation in these legislatures.
But people should know that for 60 years, private people have been able to bring an action if they've been injured. For 60 years, since the act was first established and enacted, 60 years. And the Supreme Court has been recently, like in the Milligan versus Evans case, 3 years ago, that was a total private action. So the court has been allowing private actions, but this is a theory that Alito and Thomas have come up with, saying, there should be no private right of action. The law doesn't explicitly say that private players can bring these kind of lawsuits, so we think they all should be precluded. Guess what they did yesterday?
What they do yesterday?
Yesterday. The Eighth Circuit said, okay, you issued a stay and said that we can't, block this. Yes.
Barbara, before we figure out what they did yesterday, let me go to pause for station identification. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward more with Barbara Arnwine, we're going to finish this conversation on the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Yes.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at quinemanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Tenacious Tuesdays, and we are on the grind with attorney Barbara Arnwine. Ms. Arnwine's work includes immigrant rights, judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, healthcare disparities, and LGBTQIA rights. A prominent leader in the civil and human rights community, she fights for the preservation of affirmative action and diversity programs. She's also an outspoken voice about the need for reparations for African descendants in the Americas. Barbara Arnwine, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you for having me.
Barbara, can you share with us the implications from your perspective of what these constant and consistent attacks on the Voting Rights Act of 1965 mean?
Well, we're going to find out a lot this coming term. The court has, in my estimate,
I think I just lost Barbara Arnwine. She's going to have to come back in. I saw her completely depart from the screen. As you know, we have had a number of programs on the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the consequences of what this particular piece of legislation represents. It reminds me historically of what happened during First Reconstruction after the passage of the 15th Amendment in 1870. African American men were allowed to vote, and they came back to the polling place using the vote to change the condition of the newly freed people. African American men had the right to vote, not African American women under the 15th Amendment. We elected more than a dozen African American men to the Congress of the United States during First Reconstruction. And then the Tilden Hayes Compromise of 1877, Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. And by the turn of the century, there were 0 blacks in Congress. I'm going to say that again. 0 blacks in Congress for the first half of the 20th century. It's not until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that our numbers began to increase significantly. Today, there are 62 African Americans in Congress, most of whom largely owe their congressional districts to lines that were drawn consistent with the anti-discrimination provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, giving African Americans an equal opportunity of getting elected to Congress. But it's not just us. There are more than 30 Hispanics in the Congress of the United States, largely there because of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And therefore, when you tinker with the Voting Rights Act on the scale that the Roberts Court, under the leadership of Clarence Thomas, Alito, and others are doing, we could be, by 2032, the census in 2030, redistricting in 2032, usually consistent with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we could have less than 20 blacks in Congress by 2032. That's just how serious Attorney Arnwine's analysis is at this hour. I see that Attorney Arnwine has rejoined us due to a technical glitch. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Counselor.
Yes, I don't know why I got kicked off the show, but anyway, I guess they said she's getting too hot.
This heat is messing with our Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I just want everybody to know that, as I was saying, the Supreme Court will have these major cases. What just happened yesterday evening, I said, oh my gosh, the Eighth Circuit doubled down. And they said not only can you not sue if you're discriminated against, but if you're a person who has a disability and you need assistance at the poll, yes, your dad's favorite issue. That if you can't read or write, or if you just need some help at the polls, they said, no way. They said that no, that you cannot sue because you have no private right of action under Section 208, which is the Disability and Assistance Rights provision of the Voting Rights Act. So they expanded it out. Not just, they say it's not good enough to just take away the rights of African Americans and Native Americans, but why don't we also hurt those who are disabled, those who have disabilities? Can you imagine? It is just so heartless and cruel. But the whole point is that if you don't have a private right of action, 90% of all cases are brought by private actors. So if you don't have a private right of action, then the Voting Rights Act might as well not exist because nobody can do anything with it until you pray that you get a better, Department of Justice or something. And even then, even when the Department of Justice was at its best, it didn't even bring more than 12% of all the cases. I mean, most of this work is done by groups like mine. It's done by groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, done by groups like the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and the Law, Campaign Legal Center, MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, NARF, the Native American Rights Fund, done by ACLU, done by private groups helping private the private plaintiffs bring these cases to vindicate their rights under the Constitution to equal protection under the law, to voting rights that are non-discriminatory, all of these things. So they know what they're doing. They're purposefully trying to kill the act by taking away the ability of anybody to enforce it.
Barbara, let me throw this out at you because I've heard William Barber say it, and we have about 2.5 minutes remaining in the program. And as you know, it's a pretty quick stop at the top of the hour.
Wow.
This country is democratic in direct proportion to every one of its citizens having the right to vote. And when they don't have an effective vote, the country is really purchasing its own death on an installment plan. Certainly the democracy is. Your thoughts about where our democracy is right now. Again, a hard stop at the top of the hour, but your thoughts.
The reality is that anti-democracy forces are stronger than they ever been. The Curtis Yarvin, I've talked about these eugenicists before. They just don't believe people of color are entitled to vote. They believe white political domination is mandated. It's their right. This is the other, religious doctrine, right? They really believe this stuff. They believe that that this whole world is designed for their benefit and not ours. They don't believe in power sharing. They don't believe in, in all representational power. They don't believe in any of that. They just believe that they should dominate because they're white, dominate because they think they're genetically superior to us. Folks, it's all Dred Scott Ray Doe.
Dred Scott. That's
Dred
Justice
Scott.
Roger B. Taney.
And that's the Eighth Circuit, by the way.
A black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. I believe the other holding in Dred Scott was once a slave, always a slave.
No citizenship.
No citizenship. That you
Why
can
do
be
you think they're going after birthright citizenship, people? It's not that you think they just don't like immigrants. Don't you get confused. They want to go back to Dred Scott. Because without birthright citizenship, most African Americans, you don't have the right to vote. You don't have the rights of a citizen. So they're trying to go all the way back to Dred Scott. Don't get confused, folks. This is really dangerous.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest on Tenacious Tuesdays is always attorney Barbara Arnwine. Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with